Board game chat. Board game chat. Board game chat. It's board game chat. Hi, I'm Stephanie with the Ann Arbor District Library, and I'm here to talk to you about board games. So, I know that a lot of us have been stuck at home and wanting to play games with people. The way that I found to do that is through different services online. The one that I've been using the most often is BoardGameArena.com. It's a free service that allows you to play board games with your friends over the internet. So all of my friends have accounts. It's completely free. There is a paid subscription that you can pay for, but it's not really required except for a few games. And this is a selection of games that they have available up there, and I'm just going to show you how to play some of these and what some of these games are like, and then later we'll be able to show you what that looks like on Board Game Arena, and then in a future video we'll show you a few that are on other websites as well, so you can get a taste of different different websites, different routes that you can go to get your board game fix when we're not out there going to our friends' houses, going to board game conventions, going to game stores. We're stuck in our houses, but we can still play board games. Okay, so this one goes by a few names. The box I have calls it Take 5. On Board Game Arena, it is called 6-Nimmt. I think that's spelled with the number 6 and then N-I-M-M-T. Not positive on that though, but we'll put it in the description. So the premise of this game is that you want to take the least amount of penalty points. Penalty points are these little cow heads that are on the top. So it goes from 1 to 104, and all the cards divisible by 5 have 2 skulls. The ones divisible by 11 have 5 skulls, and the 55, both divisible by 5 and 11, has 7 skulls. So you don't want to get any of those cards. To start the game, you put 4 cards out here, and that's going to start until I shuffled very well. So those cards are just in order, 29, 30, 31, 32. But whatever, that's fine. So then you deal out 10 cards to each player. 3, 6, 6, 8, 8, 10. So each player has 10 cards. Once the 10 cards are played out, the round is over. And the way this works is each player picks a card, and it's simultaneous selection. Then we'll reveal the card, both cards, and whoever has the lowest card gets to place first. So let's reveal. So I had a 5, so I get to place first. Now, the cards have to go in ascending order. My 5 is clearly lower than any of the cards that started these rows. So the way that would work is I would just choose one. I would take that card as a penalty. It doesn't go into my hand, it goes away as a penalty. And then the 5 becomes the new start of that line. And then my opponent places his card here, so it goes 5, 7. Now he doesn't really get to choose where his card is placed. His decision was made once he chose that card. So the cards always go in ascending order if they can, and then if there's several options where it could go in ascending order, it would go to the one that was the least difference. So let's say this was a 5 and the one right below it was a 6. The 7 would go next to the 6 because that's the least difference. But there was no other card that it could go in ascending order to, so it would just go to the that 5. And then we go again. I had a 16, your 8 goes first, so it goes 7, 8, and then 7, 8, 16. Okay, I had a 17 and you had a 20, so my 17 goes next to the 16. There can only be 5 cards in a row, so once a 6th card would go in the row, and if it's going to go in this row because that's the least difference, so the 20 was played. So that would cause this 6, this to be the 6th card in the row, but instead these 5 cards, all of them, go to this player's penalty pile, and the 20 slips right in as the first card of that row. And we just keep going. Alright, so we have a 52 and an 87. 52 is going to go by the 32, and the 87 is going to go next to it. That doesn't bode well for me. Okay. I have a 53, so you have an 11. So when you do bust like that, so he played the 11, there's nowhere that it could go ascending. At that point, you do get to choose where it goes. So obviously he's going to choose the one with the least penalty. So that'll slide right in there. My 53 can go next to this 30, that's the least difference, and still keeping ascending order. I got a 72, so that'll go here, and your 88 goes next to 87. Nicely played. Okay. I played an 86, you had a 73. So I finish out that row. So there's 5 cards in there. No more cards can go there. Okay. Ah, darn. You played a 15, I played a 10. So my lowest card goes first. I'm going to take the 20, because that's the lowest amount of penalty points that I can take for playing non-ascending. 15 goes next to the 11. Let's see, you got an 89, so that'll finish out this row here, the 88, then the 89. But I played a 9, I go first. I'll again take the lowest amount of penalty points. Is why you should maybe get rid of your lowest cards first. So I hit a 6, again, I take a penalty. Your 74 goes next to the 15, and then we tally up. Since we're only just doing the one round to demonstrate, we can just tally up the amount of penalty points. So I had 6, 7, 8.
7.
Close game. So normally, so the round ends after 10 turns, which is what we just did. But then the full game is over once one player has received 66 penalty points. And then from there, the person who has the least amount of penalty points wins the entire game. So that is take 5 or 6 nipped. Yeah, and this is a really fun game. So this is Hanabi. This is a cooperative game for 2 to 5 players. And this is a little bit unique in that you don't have any knowledge of what cards are in your hand. So the goal of the game is quite simple. There's several colors, and I don't know if you can really see the coloring too well, but there's several different colors of cards. They represent fireworks, and you're putting together a fireworks show with your the other players, and the fireworks show needs to go. So you'd need the green 1, and then the green 2, and then the green 3, and you need to lay that in order. And you're going to do that with each of the colors. That'd be very easy if you had perfect knowledge of what cards are in your hand. But unfortunately, let's say this is my hand. So I've got the 1 of green, the 4 of blue, the 3 of white, the 5 of green, and the another 3 of white. But I don't have any clue that that's what's in my hand because I'm holding it outward. The other players know what's in my hand. And we have a certain amount of clues that we can use in the game to point out to me. They would point out to me, and I could use the clues to point out to the other players what cards are in their hand. However, you don't want to waste your clue on just pointing out one thing, and in fact you can't. So if you were to use a clue, you would say, okay, this card and that card are white. And then I hopefully will remember that, but to help remember, I can kind of just set them aside, tilt them like that, and then I'll remember these are white, these are white, gotta remember. Or they could give me a number clue. If they really need me to play down that 1, or they really need to make sure I don't play this 5 until it's ready, they could use a clue just to point out a number. So they would say, this is a 5, and I'll just tilt that to remember that's a 5, I can't play that or discard it until it's time. So that's how that works. Now, if I had any other white cards in my hand, they would have to be pointed out when these were pointed out. If I had any other 5s in my hand, they would have to point those out when this one was pointed out as well. So you don't get to pick and choose and just say, oh, they have 3 1s in their hand, but I just want to tell them about that one. That doesn't work. Now, you only have a certain amount of clues in the game, and you recuperate the clues by discarding cards. So there's more 1s in the game than you need. So there's 3 1s of each color, and you only need 1 of each color, one of each color. So once you know the white 1, let's say, is already played down, then any other white 1s are just available to be discarded. And if I were to tell my coworker, the other player that's playing with me, with enough clues, they were to understand that there is a white 1 in their hand, they could discard that and get a clue back. And then we can use that clue to clue in the other players what's going on in their hands as well. The other way to get a clue back is once you've completed one fireworks show, so one row of 1 through 5 in a single color successfully, that grants you another clue as well. Now, there's penalties to playing incorrectly as well. So if you think, oh, they told me that this one was a 1, and we only need that yellow 1 left, so this must be the yellow 1, but you're wrong. So you say, oh, I'm going to play this yellow 1, and it's the green 1, and they told you that, so you discard it. You can't always mind read properly. So you've played a card incorrectly. You don't get a clue, even though you are discarding it, because you were playing it. And in fact, you lose a fuse token, and once you lose enough fuse tokens, I believe it's 3, then the game is over, and you can tally up your score and see how amazing your fireworks show was. And there's just a score chart in the rule book here on how amazing that was. So you tally up the highest number on each of the piles that you have, and so if you've reached 25, which means you've finished all of the piles, that is a legendary fireworks show. I think I've managed to do that a few times, maybe just once. It's pretty challenging, and you've got to have really good communication with the people that you're playing with. I really like this game because it does require good communication, good teamwork. You can't just have one player kind of taking over and being like, I know the right way to do this. Everyone gets to play their turn. I'm not sure if this is true for all versions of this game, but in this version that I have, the card backs are not the same front and bottom. They're asymmetric, so if somebody were to have clued me in on what this card is, so it's facing me, I could know, okay, well, I remember what this back looks like, and I'm going to tilt it in such a way so that I can remember what the clue was. You can also be more lenient or more strict on the rules depending on who you're playing with, and just how strict you guys are feeling at that time. So we've definitely played with people where you've forgotten what the clue had been. You were given 3 turns ago, and we've just asked the other players, what do I know about my hand? And other people might remember, like, oh, you know that that's a white card, or oh, you know that that one's a 4. And you're like, oh yeah, now I remember. I don't know if that's strictly allowed in the rules, but that's something that I like to do. So it's not as strict, it's just a little bit more fun, a little bit more seamless. So that is Hanabi. So this is Love Letter. And it's a really small game. So this is the entirety of the game. It comes with a rule book and some tokens as well. Actually, this is the rule book. So the theme of this game is that you have fallen in love with the princess, and you are trying to get your love letter to the princess before anybody else can get their love letter to the princess. And you go in rounds. Each time somebody wins a round, they get a cube to represent the princess's love, I guess. And then the first player who's gotten 3 of these cubes wins the game. So the way that works is there's a bunch of different roles. So there's the guard, the priest, baron, handmaid, prince, king, countess, and finally the princess. And then each of these cards is going to represent those. There's more of some cards than others, more guards than princesses, obviously. So there's only 1 princess, 1 countess, and 1 king in the game. And then the other cards, there's more of them, and there's the most of the guards. You'd shuffle the deck up, deal 1 to each player, and then on your turn, so you only have 1 card at the start of your turn. I have the Baron. And then on your turn, you draw another card so that you now have an option. You're not just playing what you drew, you have an option of what to play. So I drew the Baron and the Priest. So I could play the Priest to look at my opponent's hand, or I could play the Baron, and then, so that would be played, and then this says, you and another player secretly compare hands. The player with the lower value is out for the round. So we would secretly compare hands, and I have in my hand left over the Priest, and my opponent has the Princess. So the player with the lower value, that is me, is out for the round. So the princess there won the red token, and that's the round. Goes super fast, usually not that fast, but maybe I shouldn't have played the Baron, knowing I had a low number 2 priest in my hand. Obviously goes a little bit slower if there's more players, but really not that much slower. So the different roles you've got are the handmaid protects you from anybody playing cards against you until your next turn. If you have the countess and the king or prince in your hand, then you have to discard the countess. The princess, if you discard this card, you're out of the round, so you can't discard the princess if you want to win the round. Win it over the baron and the priest. The prince, you choose any player, it could be yourself, and they discard their entire hand and just draw a new card. Which could, if you think you know where the princess is, you could play the prince on the person who has the princess, forcing them to discard, forcing them out of the round. So there's some strategy there. The guard, you can name a non-guard card, choose another player, and if that person has that card, then they're out of the round. So you can say, I'm playing the guard, and I think you have the priest, and if they do, then they're out of the round. The king, the final one, lets you trade cards with another, or trade hands with another player. So there's really not that many options. There's 8 actions, and during your turn, you'll only have 2 cards to choose. But even though it is a very small deck of cards, and it goes very quickly, there is some strategy in there, and it's a ton of fun. Okay, so to start off Love Letter, each player draws 1 card, that's their hand. They can look at it, but they don't show it to anyone else. And then player 1 draws a card, and then from those 2 cards in their hand, they pick which card they want to play.
I'm playing a guard. Do you have a baron?
I don't have a baron. Alright, now I'll draw a card. I'll play the prince. So I'm going to make you discard your card and draw a new card, and that was the princess. So that causes my opponent to lose. I've got a cube, and then we discard all of the cards and start over for a new round. Now, I don't recall who's meant to go next. Do you? Should I go? Okay. I'll play the priest and look at your hand. I see.
I'll play a prince and swap hands with you. No, sorry. I'll play a prince because you discard your hand.
Ooh, you had caused me to discard a prince and then draw a card to replace it. And then I'll draw a card on my turn. I'll play a guard, and so now I can see there's only 2 princes in the game, and both of them are out, so I won't guess prince. let me see. Do you have a handmaid? No.
I'm gonna play the guard you knew I had.
Oh, I did know you had that, but I can't call a guard on a guard anyways.
Do you have a princess?
I don't. Let's see. I'm just gonna go ahead and play my handmaid, so you can't affect me until my next turn.
I'm gonna draw a card, and I'm gonna play a countess. Countess doesn't do anything, but if I had a king or a prince in my hand, I would have to play it.
Well, I will play another guard. It's 3 guards out. Only 5 in the game. I'll see if you have a baron.
I do not. Play a priest. Show me a hand.
It's a guard.
Cool.
I'll go ahead and play another handmaid.
I'll play a baron, but since you played a handmaid, I don't do anything.
Nothing happens. I'll play the king and trade hands with you.
I'll play a guard and ask you have the princess.
I do have the princess, so I'm out. 1 cube to the opponent.
Important thing we forgot in the first 2 rounds. At the beginning of each round, after shuffling the cards, 1 card is removed from the round.
Oh, yeah.
So not all 18 cards are in each round.
Yeah. There's always an element of surprise. One other thing to mention is that if we had run out of the deck, if the entire deck had run out, then each player would reveal their hand, and whoever had the highest card would win. I think maybe you go? I'm not sure.
Handmaid.
I'll just play the countess.
Guard. Do you have a king?
No. Priest, let me see that hand.
It's a guard.
Ah.
Guard. Do you have a prince?
No. Prince, discard your card.
Priest, show me that card.
It's a baron. Prince, discard your card.
Handmaiden, leave me alone.
Let's see. Guard, do you have the king?
I do not.
Oh, the king's right there.
He is.
Oh, man. I thought I looked at the board well enough.
You didn't.
Dang.
Guard, do you have a baron?
Yeah.
I was going to win because I had the highest card anyway.
Ah. And so that's Love Letter. This is Red 7 by Carl Tredick and Chris Cieslik. Hope I'm pronouncing that even close to right. This is for 2 to 4 players, and the box says it's 5 to 10 minutes. That's a little inaccurate, and I'll explain why. But first, let me explain a little bit about the game. So this game consists of cards that are of 7 colors, and within each color, there's 7 numbers. So we have red, orange, green, blue, indigo, violet, and in each of those, we've got the numbers 1 through 7. As you can see here, and they're pretty. So on your turn, you're going to have a hand of cards, and then you're going to play a card. The game starts with a rule in place which says, highest card wins. And you must play a card to match the rule and still be winning. So everyone will start with a card randomly in front of them. So I have a 7, my opponent would have a 6, which means that they would be starting, because you can't be the winner and start the game. So they would start, and now they have to be winning by the end of their turn. Otherwise, they're out, and that's the end of the round for them. And if there were more players, we would keep playing until there's one player left. So they have the 6, I have the 7. They need to play a card higher. So they could play a 7, but if they do, then we'd just be tied, right? So I have a 7, they'd have a 7, but you can see that there's a scale of coloring here. So I have a 7 of indigo, so they could play a 7 of any of the colors above it, and it would be higher than the 7 that I have, and they would still be winning. So number is what matters, and then color breaks tie. And of course the red 7, red being the highest on the chart, 7 being the highest number, is the highest card. So there's 3 ways that you can play this game that are written into the rulebook, and the first way is the simplest. I've played this with a lot of different people, different ages, different skill levels in games, and they've had tons of fun with the simplest, most basic version. It's still challenging, but it's fun. So that is what I'm demonstrating right now, which is just you have to beat the rule, and you have to be winning at the end of your turn. Now, one thing I didn't mention is, so this is highest card wins. However, each of these colors has a different rule listed on them. So you can play up to 2 cards in your turn, 1 to your palette here, your palette of colors, and 1 to the rule. So if I knew that I was not going to win highest number because I've got a bunch of low cards here, I could play maybe this rule here, which says most cards below 4. I've got a 3, nobody else has any cards below 4, so I'm winning that rule. So now I've just changed the rule, it goes on to the next player, and they go, oh, most cards below 4. I don't have any cards in my hand that are below 4, or on my palette that are below 4, so they'll have to change the rule as well. And so you could play just to your palette, you could play just to change the rule, or you could play 1 card to each. The trick is, though, that you want to be the last person in the game, and so if you're playing 2 cards each turn, you're not drawing any more cards during the round, then that's going to be hard to win if everyone else is only playing 1. You're going to run out of cards, you're going to not win the round. So that's the most basic, where you're just playing this, trying to win, and see who stays in last. The more advanced version introduces where you're playing very similar to that, but after each round, whoever won puts some cards aside that they won with into a score pile, and then you're playing to a certain number of points based off of how many players there are. So let's say that I had some cards out here like this, so I had a 1, 2, 3, and a 7 in front of me, and I don't know, my opponent had a few cards in front of them as well, and they ran out of cards, they couldn't continue playing, and the rule was most cards below 4. So I win because they ran out, and I could continue playing and still match the rule. So I would take all of the cards that match the rule that I won with, so that would be these cards, the ones below 4, so 1, 2, and 3, set those aside, and that's my score pile, which makes the next round a little bit more interesting, because now we know that there's no 1 orange, there's no 2 green, and there's no 3 of indigo left in the deck. And the deck gets a little bit smaller, a little bit less variety there. And I have 6 points, so you just count the number, that's how many points you have. Now, the hardest version of this game, which I don't play every time I'm playing this game, because it is actually quite tricky, takes several color, oh, there's a 3 right there, takes the 1, 3, and 5, and 7, and gives them actions. So you're not just playing them to your palette and the rule, but additionally, when you're playing them to your palette, they do a thing. So if you, see if I can even remember what they do, because I don't play this version very often. So if you play a 1, then you take a card from another player's palette, and you put it on top of the draw deck. However, you can't do that if they've got fewer cards in their palette than you do, because that would just be mean. If you played a 3, you just get to draw a card from the deck. If it's empty, then you don't get to do anything. A 5 is not necessarily a great thing. It can be a good thing. It requires you to play another card from your hand to your palette, which could be great, or it could dwindle that hand down a lot lower than you wanted. And the 7 lets you, or forces you, to choose a card from your palette and then either place it on top of the draw deck or put it as the new rule. So you have to be quite strategic to get those 7s out. 7's a great number, it's the highest number, and you probably want it to have, for a lot of the rules, especially the red rule, which is highest number, but getting a 7 out when you're playing with actions is quite difficult. Because then you're forced to get rid of another one of the cards here. There was one rule that I just realized I forgot with the previous one, and it involves if you play a rule that the number on the rule is higher than the amount of cards in your palette, you get to draw a card. So that's not the most basic version, that's the middle version and the actions version. So if I had played the 4 to the canvas, is what this is called, the to get it to be the new rule, and I only had 1, 2, or 3 cards in my palette, I would get to be able to draw another card into my hand, which might be my saving grace. So this is Red 7. It is a deceptively difficult game, so it is really not that many cards. Like I said, it is, 7 times 7, so it's 7 colors and 7 numbers in each color. So the deck is quite small. The simplest version isn't the most complicated game that I've ever played, but it is a little bit more complicated than you think it'll be when you open up a box and see that there's just this many colorful little cards. I highly recommend it. It's one of my favorite games. Okay, so I've talked about Board Game Arena at different points in this video, and I just wanted to give you a quick glimpse of what that looked like. So this is the main page of Board Game Arena. If you click on this meeple figurine over here, you'll be able to see your profile. And then the most important one is this Play Now button. That'll allow you to join games that other people have started. Like I said, this is a free service. You can pay for it. And there's a few games that you can't access unless somebody who's paid for the service has started the game. But then you'll see here, so here's a game of 7 Wonders. There's several that people are starting, so this allows you to create a new table of it, and it'll tell you the estimated wait time to get enough people to play. And then these ones are games that are already going or waiting for people to join in, so you could click join. It does go kind of fast. Sometimes you have to be really quick on the jump there. So it's quite a few games that are pretty much constantly going. If you scroll further down, so Chronos is a game that doesn't typically have games starting on it, but that's one that I've played before, and so that's why it's showing me that here. And then up here, you'll also see games. And then this will allow you to browse through all of the games on their service. The ones in beta are ones that are still being programmed and being added to this service. Then if you want to, if you only have 4 people playing, you could limit it to like 4 players, and it'll only show you the games that can be played at 4 or fewer players. You can limit it to complexity, play time, you could search by game name, or if you wanted, you could just set those all to nothing, go to all games, and just look through all of them. So this is 6 Nimmt here. Here's Hanabi. I think those are some of the ones that we've shown you. Love Letter is down here. It is a little bit of a different box than what we had. This is the box pictured here is the one for the one with the expansions built in. So if you want to start your own game, you would click on the game. You can add it to your favorites so it's easier to find later. There's a video rulebook and a download rulebook. A lot of the downloadable rulebooks, they just will link you to Board Game Geek. And so this is the main page for it. I think you might have to add it to your favorites, and then you can click Go Play Now to start a new game. Yeah, here we go. So then now it's on your favorite, so it's going to show up down here, and there's 7 tables available, so you can click on that to see the tables. And then you'll be able to see there's all of these tables started. You do want to look at this created X minutes ago button here, or it's not really a button, but that phrase there. Sometimes people will create a table and just kind of walk away, so like I wouldn't want to try and jump into this one that was created 21 minutes ago, because it's likely that's not going to start. So this is Board Game Arena. There's lots of games on it. I have a lot of my friends added on to it. They all have accounts, so we join up once a week, meet via Zoom so we can all hang out and see each other, and play through Board Game Arena. And they're adding more games all the time, so lots of new stuff on here. All right, thanks for joining us.